Hello and welcome to Intro to Studio Media. I'm your instructor, Chuck Lyons. Today we're going to talk about composition. We're going to talk about shot selection. When you're viewing any kind of a video image, you're going to have your screen. It's going to either be a composition of 4:3 or with all of the new TV sets 16:9. But we have this area that we're going to fill up. And there are some industry standards for composition of cropping and composition. Where do we want to put the head? Do we want to put the head in the center? Do we want to put it slightly to the left or right? Down at the bottom? Where do we want to put that building? Do we want to leave space on one side or the other? This is composition. Basically, anyone can pick up a video camera and turn on a camera, but a professional will learn how to compose the shot properly so it looks good, looks very pleasing to the eye. So we want to talk about some of the industry standards that's used in composition. The first shot we want to talk about is our extreme long shot. And if you want to think of this as a wide shot, if you were going to be outside and you were going to be videotaping a building, we want to show the entire building as much as we possibly can. It might also include some of the land that the building sits on. And if you want to think of your extreme long shot, and that's abbreviated ELS, that particular shot is going to basically be as wide as you can possibly go. So on your video camera, you want to use your little toggle from wide angle to telephoto. Put that in the wide angle mode, go as wide as you possibly can. And this is generally used to portray what we talk about, a big area or a vast area that's apparently from a very long distance. And it's a very wide shot. And what we're trying to do a lot of times, we're trying to impress the people that are watching the TV program with the immense, or just how big the setting is, or maybe how big, let's say Green High School. If we were filming Green, we want to show the building, how big it is, and impress the people with the shot. And also it gives the audience an overall view of the setting before we actually get into the main action. A lot of times that's called an establishing shot. We want to establish what's going on. In this case, if it would be a video about FedEx Custom Critical, we might want to start out the video with a shot of the building, a very wide shot, an extreme long shot, showing the entire building, and that before we actually get into the main action or the video about FedEx Custom Critical. So that's your ELS, abbreviations for extreme long shot. If we're working in the studio, here's an image you can take a look at. If we were in the studio and we have a person standing there, and if we for some reason wanted to show an extreme long shot, you can take a look at the shot of our student standing there, and you'll see not only the person, but you're going to see the studio. It looks pretty large. We'll see how big the surroundings are around the person. If we're talking about an outdoor shot, if you take a look at Green High School, in this case, we're showing the entire school from the very left corner of the building all the way to the back end to the right side. Luckily, we even have the sign in there that says Green High School. But this gives you an idea, working with buildings, what an extreme long shot would look like. Now we want to tighten up things just a little bit. We want to talk about the long shot. Basically, we're either going to physically move in a little bit closer. We might want to zoom in a little bit more. It's still going to be a wide shot, but it's going to show the entire scene where the action is going to be taking place. The composition is what we call a little bit loose. If we have a person in the shot, they're able to move about and not walk out of the frame. So we talk about having the shot a little bit loose with the long shot, which is abbreviated LS. And if I was going to show a long shot in the studio, you'll notice, as compared to the last shot, everything's tightened up a little bit. We've lost some of the background. The person, if that's the main point of interest, is a little bit larger. We still see them from head to toe. We give them a little bit of floor to stand on. We don't want to cut them off right at the feet. We give them a little bit of headroom, and you still see a lot of empty space from left to right. If this person, student, actually wanted to walk around a little bit, they could, but this is what the long shot would look like. If we showed the long shot of Green High School, we moved in a little bit closer, maybe zoomed in a little bit, tightened up the shot, and now you'll see the Green High School sign is a lot larger. We do not see all of the building, but it still shows quite a bit of the land and Green High School with your long shot. Our next shot composition is called a 3/4. Generally, this refers to working with a person in the shot. And what we want to think about is if we were going to be filming a person, if we started at the top of their head, went 3/4 of the way down the body, we're going to come to the knees. And that's where the bottom frame is going to crop. So if you look at the bottom of your frame, that should be cropped off at the knees, and we would see the rest of the body with a little bit of space at the top. And that is your 3/4 shot. And if we look at our student again in the studio, you'll notice that this particular shot crops at the knees, and we have a little bit of headroom left at the top. As we move in a little bit closer, we're going to keep tightening these shots up little by little. We're going to talk about the medium shot. The medium shot is going to be cropping basically at the waistline if we're dealing with people. Usually this is a midway point between a close-up shot and a long shot. And so if you just think about this as cropping at the waist, it's going to bring our main element, in this case a person, it's going to bring them into the scene a little bit more. It's going to start to call attention to them, not necessarily the surroundings as much. And it tends to narrow the center of interest down to this person, and basically the audience is going to go, what's this person going to be talking about, because we're going to now deal with the person, and it's going to come in a little bit tighter. But easy way to remember this: a medium shot crops roughly at the waistline. And a lot of actors are photographed in different shots when they want something still just a little bit loose, but they want to see a portion of the body. You'll see a lot of them being photographed with a medium shot. And if we take a look at our medium shot in the studio of our young lady, you'll notice this particular shot's a little tighter. Once again, we're starting to see her face a little more all the time. And we crop her at the very bottom of the frame is going to crop at the waist. If we talked about a medium shot outside, it's hard to really determine what a medium shot is, but if we started with the building as an extreme long shot, then a long shot, basically we're coming in closer. We're going to start to tighten up the shot, and we might focus on just a portion of the building. In this case, we see part of the parking lot, part of the school, the main entrance where the flags are located could be an example. When we might have several medium shots of the building in order to show off the entire building. Our next cropping that we use, we'll talk about cropping or composition in dealing with the person, is called a bust shot. And this is a shot that basically will crop right below the bust line. This particular shot is used a great deal with talent that is really going to, once again, call emphasis to the person. We're going to really start to see their face. It's going to reveal a little bit of the background, what you see behind the person and on each side, but your main center of interest is going to be the person that you're going to be filming. A lot of people call it, and I like to call it, the go-to shot. If you're not really sure what kind of a shot to use with the talent, if there's nothing that important in the background that you need to see, a real good shot you could go to at any time would be your bust shot, which would crop just under the bust line. Here's an example of the bust shot of our young lady. And once again, we're really calling our center of interest to the person. So you can hardly ever go wrong with a bust shot. It's a good one to use. One of the things that most amateurs tend to do, they want to shoot everything too loose. They want to do everything with long shots. And when we're dealing with subjects talking on camera, really what's really important is the face. We want to see the person talking. We want to see the face. And that, so a couple shots that if the background is really not that necessary in the shot, especially when dealing with talent, and that would be a bust shot. You're really not going to go wrong with that at all. We're going to come from the bust shot to cropping just on the top of the bust line. Now we're coming in with the close-up shot. The close-up shot's going to fill up the frame with the most important part of the scene. So whatever's important, that's what we're going to show, in this case a person. And the close-up should be used to include action of the primary interest. So we want to use this close-up shot if we're dealing with, let's say, one subject, and we want to come in and we want to focus all of our attention to that person. It's going to be too hard to move around, and that going from subject to subject, and that with the close-up shot. So the action should be of the primary interest, in this case a person. The close-up shots will give the audience a detailed view of the most important part of the scene, whether it's the person's face or some action that's taking place. But remember, in this case, the composition for a close-up is going to crop above the bust line. We don't want it to crop under the chin. We want it to crop above the bust line because we want to provide some shoulders as a base for the head to sit on. Because when we crop off right at the chin, we're just going to end up with a big head in the shot, and it's going to look a little strange. So you want to come in above the bust line, provide some shoulders for the head to sit on. And if we take a look at our close-up shot of our young lady, now you'll notice we're really coming in, getting a good shot of her face and being able to see her face and what's going on. We're not going to really see too much of the background at all. If we're dealing with a shot of a building, such as Green High School, the close-up shot in this case might be maybe just a shot of a door. And you could have a lot of different close-ups of maybe people leaving the building, coming out of the door. So usually a lot of these shots are generally referring to people in the photos, but if you wanted to think of calling interest to a particular shot, we'd look at this close-up shot of the building, of the doorway, and maybe the number above, which is very important for the fire department, number 16. So we might call this a close-up shot of the building. As we move in closer, our next shot is going to be one that's called the extreme close-up, abbreviated ECU. And our extreme close-up is going to come in and is basically going to focus on what we call the mask of the face, and that we're going to see the eyes, we're going to the nose, the mouth, we're going to see this portion, and it's going to be something that is really magnified on the screen. The entire face fills up the screen. It might be chopped off, the top of the head might be cut, we might chop off at the chin. Like I said, we're trying to draw emphasis to this portion of the face. We call it the mask of the face, and this is where we're going to see emotion. So anytime you're looking for some dramatic effect or you want to show emotion, you don't want to do that with a medium shot. You're not going to see the mask of the face that well. Remember, when something might be emotional, you might see the eyes start to tear up, and you might see the tear run down the cheeks. You might see the lips quivering with somebody having a very emotional experience or under a lot of stress. And that type of shot is going to show emotion, or if the person's extremely happy or scared, you're going to see that in the eyes, the mouth. And you want to do this with an extreme close-up shot because you're not going to see those kind of details when you're filming with let's say a 3/4, a medium shot, or a long shot. So anytime you want to be able to have some kind of dramatic effect or show emotion, this is going to be your go-to shot. To come in to get basically the mask of the face. It's going to draw great attention to very small details, such as maybe the lips moving or the eyes tearing up. And we want to talk about, in composition, headroom. Headroom is the amount of space from the top of the frame to the top of the head. And proper headroom is very, very important in production. Too much headroom makes the person look like they're kind of sinking, and it allows just way too much space at the top. Too little headroom places visual emphasis on the person's chin and the neck. So we generally, for traditional type of photography work and video work, and that we usually like to have what we call just the right amount of headroom in the shot. Unfortunately today it seems like there is no right or wrong. You'll see a lot of times where they have people's heads chopped off even though they're in on a bust shot or the medium shot. But if we're talking about traditional video work, what is appropriate is having just a small amount of space at the top. If we take a look at our shot of our young lady, in this particular one, you'll notice the face is right in the center of the frame, and we have all this space above her head. A lot of people, when they're looking through the camera, they think that they have the shot correct if they put the face or the head right in the center. And it doesn't say that in the book at all. Sometimes even on some of the older video cameras or even still cameras, there's a circle in the middle. People assume that's where they're supposed to put the head. It has nothing to do with the placement or the composition at all. What you want to do is you want to utilize the space that you have to work with. And in this particular shot, you can see there's too much space above our young lady's head. And if we go in and basically take our camera and we're going to tilt down, now we're going to eliminate. And if you'll look at this particular shot, you'll see that now we have just a little bit of headroom at the top. We're not cropping into the top of the head at all. We're giving her adequate space. I want to mention something about what we call nose room and lead room. Nose room and lead room refers to the space in front of the subject. If we have somebody that is running let's say at a football game, they're running the football down the field. Whatever the direction they're running, you want to leave space in front of that person. You want to give them room to run into the shot. You don't want to have them kind of running out of the screen and all the space behind them. I always like to think of any time that we're doing, let's say, a long shot, extreme long shot, or we're showing somebody walking, moving, running. I like to think of that as, we like to use the term lead room. When we're talking about doing more close-ups of people, we'll talk about nose room. And you definitely want to leave extra space in front of a moving person or an object. Could be a runner, somebody on a bicycle, a football player, whatever it might be. This way it gives them space to run into the shot. And if we're talking about nose room, basically we're talking about space on the side that the nose is pointing. In this particular case, I am speaking with you and I'm looking right into the camera. We have a little bit more space, over on this side where we place a graphic, but we'll be demonstrating in class how we use nose room when we're doing interviews. If I draw a straight line between my nose and the camera, and that in most cases, unless like in this case I'm slightly off center to allow just a little bit more room over here for graphics, but in most cases I would be centered up, with the camera. If I'm going to be talking with someone, if I'm going to be interviewing that person, what I want to do is I want to turn my face and I want to look at that person. Well, whatever direction the nose is pointing, that is the side that we want more space on. This way we're looking into the shot. So if I would turn and have my face going one direction, I would need to go over here and that to allow more space, on the one side. It's a little hard to demonstrate on this particular camera, but we'll be going over a little more detail in class about nose room and lead room. But nose room and lead room refers to empty space on the side that either the nose is pointing or if somebody is moving, we want to allow them room to run into that particular space. And we have a couple other shots. We'll talk about an over-the-shoulder shot. We'll not go into great deal of detail right now. This is where the camera is going to be slightly above our subject. We're going to shoot over the shoulder of that person toward one subject, pointing the camera at the subject to be filmed. This particular shot might have a little bit of the back of the head of the person sitting in front of us, but most of the image that we're going to see is going to be the person that is our main center of interest. But we might have part of the back of the head and the shoulder of the person directly in front of us. And then our main interest is going to be on our subject that's going to be in the background. So we'll talk a little more detail and give you a demonstration in class on that. By using the over-the-shoulder shot, it gives kind of a feeling of participation. We could see maybe the person, the back of the head of the person that's doing the interview, and then we could see the person looking toward the interviewer. So we have both people in the particular shot. A lot of times we use a shot called a reaction shot. A lot of people, I've heard of them refer to this as a noddy. And what a noddy does is it helps break up a lengthy interview. A lot of times someone's going to be talking and we would have the camera on that subject, and after maybe 10 seconds, 15, 20, whatever it might be, it would get rather boring just to look at that person unless we have some B-roll footage to put over top of it. So a lot of times what they will do is they will have the person that will be talking, and we want to break up the shot, so we will insert a shot of the interviewer, and they will basically be looking toward that person, and they'll just be nodding their head, just a slight little nod, basically like, oh yes, is that how I understand? Okay, you don't want to talk, all you want to do is just a slight little reaction to the person talking. Now, this does not have to be filmed at the time the interview is going on. Usually it's done afterwards. And make sure that it's just a slight little nod, that basically you're reacting to what the person has to say. You don't want your head bouncing up and down. That's too obvious. But you might want to film 5-10 seconds of footage of this noddy, and then you could always edit this into the to the production. So as the person's being interviewed, we could cut to the shot of the interviewer just nodding and put in a couple seconds of that, and then we could go right back to the person that's being interviewed. So it helps break up the shot, and usually you can do this after the interview's over. The camera operator basically turns the camera on the interviewer, and you just do your nod and record a few seconds of this. And make sure that you don't move your lips at all in that. You're just basically looking, and just a slight acknowledgement of what the person had to say. Now you have this footage to work with. If you need to break up the shot and insert this, you can put this reaction shot in, or we call a noddy. And when you're working with the camera and trying to get your composition and everything correct, pay attention to your background. Background is very important. Make sure that the background in your shot doesn't draw your viewer's attention away from the main subject. A lot of times if you were somewhere when somebody's saying something, you might have people in the background, and maybe people were walking and waving and doing all kind of crazy things like that. Well, just stop. Just stop. And that you want to pick a background that's not going to be distracting. You're going to have a lot of things that's going to take the viewer's attention away from what you're saying. Now, a lot of times a background could be very important. Let's think about if there's going to be a football game that Friday night and you're doing a sideline interview. Well, it would be maybe nice in the background that you could see the players warming up, going through all the different drills that they do. Your background would actually add to the shot. Maybe you're interviewing the coach, but in the background you would see some of the players working out. So in this case, the background would be very important and would help add to the shot. Background clutter, any distracting objects, people, and so forth really should be avoided. And watch for bright backgrounds. We really don't want the background to be brighter than the subject, because it's going to call attention to itself. Rule of thumb, most of the time, don't shoot into windows, don't shoot into windows, don't shoot into windows. And turn a different direction. Have the window, if you're the cameraman, have the window over your shoulder. Let that light fall on the subject. Do not place a person in front of a bright background unless you know how to operate the camera properly and set it for manual exposure. If you're in auto exposure, the person's face is going to go dark. So you definitely don't want to shoot in front of windows. Just kind of a good rule of thumb. If you are going to do that, you would have to maybe put in an auxiliary light, and it gets a lot more involved because we do not want the person's face to go dark. So this is talking about background. Pay attention to the background, not just the subject, and eliminate clutter and eliminate anything distracting. If it's something that could be useful for the particular story that the subject's talking about, well, then you could include that in the background. So think about those things when you're setting up your shot. Well, this should give us a little bit of background into composition, shot selection, and think about these different items when you're working with the camera. We talked about composition, exposure, and lighting. Well, one of the three, this one deals with composition. You need to know how important it is to get the composition correct for the shot in order to change you from being just a, Uncle Harry's video into a professional videographer. So you want to concentrate on your shot composition. Is it appropriate for the story that you're doing? And hopefully this will give you a little bit of information, and now you'll know a little bit more of how to compose the shots properly.